Good Wednesday morning, the last Wednesday of July. It's been quite a month uh, for everybody, I'm sure. Uh, Today, well, I took Constance shopping to Trader Joe's just down the street here, and on Wednesdays we have a chance to do that, shop at Trader Joe's before I take my morning walk to Temple. I should really get a kickback from it's good coffee, Temple coffee here in Sacramento. Anyway, and so while I was sitting in the car, uh, I was thumbing through my phone and my Kindle uh, for I had an idea brewing in my head. That's why I got my Mason hat on this morning because a number of years ago, uh, I'd been in the Masons, I guess, 10 years or so at the time, and it just occurred to me that uh, I was seeing in the traditions and the rituals of Freemasonry, I've seen quite a bit of profound spiritual and magical lore or significance or magic in it. Okay, and obviously most Masons around the world uh, don't look at it that way. But sort of following Rabbi Ben Clifford's one of his Ten Command rants, that if you look hard enough at anything, you'll eventually see everything, because absolutely everything is connected to everything else, even physically. Uh, Ultimately, the chair here I'm sitting in is sitting on the floor, which is connected to the foundation of the house, which is connected to the earth, which is connected to space and everything space contains. Everything is connected to everything else, but everything is also uh, the reflection of everything else, like the repeating fractal phenomenon. Everything is the reflection of everything else, and not only that, but uh, examine closely enough, everything contains the pattern of everything else. That's why the analogy of fractals is such a good one. So maybe it was just because uh, I had, at the time I joined the Masons, I had a good 25 years of magical adventures and magical study and magical meditations under my belt. So it was for me a matter of, well, I'm going to go through this beautiful fraternity that my father belonged to and spoke very highly of and everything. And I'm 50 years old now at the time, and I says it's about time I joined my dad's old lodge and make sure he had, in retrospect, a proper Masonic funeral. It's a long story, but but I was seeing magic everywhere in it. And even though, especially in the United States, uh, the volume of the Sacred Law, which is one of the three lights of Masonry, uh, that sits upon the altar along with the other two lights, the square and the compasses, uh, is the Bible. Okay, they usually have a nice big Bible on the altar top. And but it's Bible in a generic way, okay, even though it's opened up to certain scripture lines and certain degrees and things like that. Its official title is the Volume of the Sacred Law, or the Book of the Law. Now, when I joined the Masons, uh, uh, I requested that the Book of the Law, Liber Vel Legis, uh, be on the altar, and all my obligations and stuff I could take on the Book of the Law, because uh, at least theoretically, in most jurisdictions, the candidate is allowed to put the sacred text, the Book of the Law, of their own religion or philosophy. So there are Masons that take their oaths on the Tao Te Ching that's on the altar, and many on the Quran, and for Muslim members. And so I was lucky enough to, at the time, the jurisdictions of California Grand Lodge uh, made specific, as a matter of fact, where is it? It's around here someplace. Um, the Grand Master says, yes, Liber Vel Legis is the holy text for use for Masons of the Thelemic religion. Um, but I digress. The idea that the mythos of the Masonic myth, Blue Lodge Masonic, well, all over the other concordant degrees also, um, is King Solomon. Okay. Now, we don't worship King Solomon, okay, but King Solomon is the main character, the archetype of the master mason, okay, the representative of the great architect of the entire universe. Okay. And the story of Solomon, which is familiar to most of us, no matter what our religion is that uh, King Solomon, when he became king, uh, prayed or went into meditation, or as it says in the Bible, entered into the presence of God, and more or less said, okay, now I'm king of your people. Uh, I need help. I need help here. I can't do it with my limited meat brain here. I can't rule these people. I can't, uh, supervise your form of worship. My meat brain can't handle it. I need your wisdom in order to pull this off. And the story kind of goes that God was so impressed with that request. He said, shit, nobody's ever done that before. They've always asked for stuff. And he said, yeah, okay, I'll give you my wisdom. Okay, in other words, I will blend my consciousness with your consciousness so that you, as a conduit, can transmit my will toward the building of this huge project, the building of the temple that is proportioned so perfectly that it reflects a perfectly functioning miniature functional uh, model of the cosmos itself. So the idea being, okay, I'm going to digress here for a second. The idea being, if you can build a temple or a building or a house or an object even that is as perfectly proportioned as the universe itself, then it will vibrate. Like if the whole universe itself and the consciousness of God, the consciousness of the singularity, if it was a giant tuning fork, okay, and all the power of existence was the vibration of that tuning fork. Let's say E flat, okay? If E flat, the giant, huge E flat, was the vibration that is holding all manifest universe together, all potentiality, all the spectrum of consciousness of being, if God was an E flat, huge tuning fork, then if you could construct a little tiny E flat tuning fork, that little tiny, infinite octaves smaller than the big E flat, the little E flat, you wouldn't even have to hit it against anything. If it was perfectly constructed, it would vibrate in symphony with the giant E flat. In other words, the presence of God would be in that tiny E flat tuning fork. And that was the whole idea about the Temple of Solomon, that it was going to be proportioned exactly to the right dimensions and the right ornamentations and the right absolutely everything. So it would be that miniature working model of the E flat. God would indwell it. Not only that, but if there were additional little perfectly proportioned things like the Ark of the Covenant that was inside that, that's where the presence of God would be centered and flashing between the two wings of the whole idea is just absolutely beautiful, breathtaking, profound. And the whole idea was Solomon said, I don't have the meat brain to do this. Give me the wisdom. And God was so impressed that, hey, he figured out the formula. Okay, you got it, kid. And he gives Solomon the wisdom. And with that wisdom comes the ability to summon, control, and direct all of the powers of the universe, including the broken, fragmented, infernal, as in our minds, infernal, fragmented, incomplete, blind forces of the universe that symbolized as demons. Well, they're demons, all right, but they do all of the heavy lifting in the universe, okay? And if they're under proper control, they sustain the universe in harmony with the giant consciousness. And if they're out of sequence, if they're out of control, they just go ahead and exercise their blind, destructive, massive. I mean, it's not that it's not that they're doing it on purpose. They're just exercising their blind force nature. It's nothing personal, But they would just as easily do it in a well-directed harmonic way than just continue on with their their blind force just gushing like burning Drano around the lines of least resistance of the cosmos uh, vessels of consciousness. Uh, so that's the Solomonic key, and that's the key to Solomonic magic. Okay, is the magician figures out how to get to that point of where the big architect hands that power. That's the invocation of a magician. It's not just, oh, big God up there, I hope you're going to help me rip up these demons. I want Tina, the girl next door, to fall in love with me. So, oh, please, God. That's not an invocation. An invocation is where you're vibrating, where you become that little tuning fork. That's an invocation. And when you become that little tuning fork, you are the Solomon, and you are the conduit, and you are the magician, the directive magician. And so all your work is done in harmony with the universal existence, universal purpose, if you will. So I was seeing that in the very homespun uh, rituals and traditions of Freemasonry. And so I wrote a book, okay, called The Key to Solomon's Key. And oddly enough, uh, I had to talk about the foundations of Masonry and our veneration of the Knights Templar and what the Knights Templar either had or did not have, uh, but how our traditions, took over that concept. And I did that as a huge preface to actually the Lesser Key of Solomon. It's a handbook of Goetic magic with all of the spirits and things like that. But the whole first part of the book, or 2/3 of the book, was to show none of this means anything unless you're a Solomon. Okay. Now, God, that's my digression. Um, I was going to talk about that, but in doing so, I found something that I'm going to share with you that was part of my notes that I was taking to myself, scattered notes. As I'm just the worst, laziest, funkiest writer. I write books from the inside toward toward the inside and work my way to the beginning and the end from the center sometimes. But I just got tons of scattered notes that I just unorganizedly share in different computer files and stuff. And most of them I'll never look at again. Okay. And some of them get lost and misfiled, and some of them are so old that they're of programs that I can't open anymore. But I found a note. It's just scattered little snippets of things that I wrote as I was preparing to write The Key to Solomon's Key. And I thought I'd share it with you this morning. Here's what I start off with. Contrast Old Testament Solomon, his line that he speaks in 1 Kings 3, where God tells Solomon, nobody will ever be wiser than he. And contrast that with the New Testament Jesus, who tells his disciples, greater things than I do, you shall do. Now, in the book, I sort of bleed over uh, to the contrast between uh, the Old Testament way of looking at God's relationship with people and the New Testament, or the possibility that the New Testament is talking about something new and improved and an evolutionary step. And that's all kind of tied up with, well, what the hell were the Knights Templars? What inspired them to, okay. And then I just have this one line, if you build it, he will come. And that led me on that tuning fork thing. If you build the tuning fork, if you build the miniature working model of the cosmos, he will come. In other words, if it's perfectly fashioned, it's created to resonate sympathetically with the big note, if you will. And that's what the Temple of Solomon's about. That's what the Holy of Holies is about. That's what the Ark of the Covenant is about. It's one of those things. Literally, the vibration is God. Make the right tuning fork, and God will indwell it. Okay. And here's 7. I got these numbered for some reason. It says human beings are inherently good. And it says staircase. Now that's in reference to a key Masonic lecture. It's called the Staircase Lecture. And in most jurisdictions, it's part of the fellowcraft degree. And the fellowcraft degree, historically speaking, what is now considered the second degree in Blue Lodge Masonry, that used to be the big degree in very, very early Freemasonry. The Master Mason degree was tantamount to the only person to get that degree was actually the master of the lodge, and all the juicy stuff was given in that second degree, that staircase lecture. And it says human beings are inherently good. Now, I won't share the staircase lecture with you, except for what's called monitorial. That means it's published. It's open for everybody. You don't have to it's not considered a Masonic secret in the sense of other parts of the ritual. And in that part that's monitorial, it says that, let's see, a fund of science and industry is implanted in man for the best, most salutary, and most beneficent purposes. I mean, it's a no-brainer. Okay, it's obvious. It's what edifying words. A fund of science and industry is implanted in man for the best, most salutary, and most beneficent purposes. Who could disagree with that? Well, I'll tell you who could disagree with it, and that's Paul. And this is where we see a conflict between so-called New Testament doctrine and Freemasonry. That does not, the best, most salutary, most beneficent purposes does not jive with original sin, does not jive with the doctrine of the total depravity of man, does not jive with the concept that we are doomed to eternal damnation for the crime of being born, unless we follow certain. Okay. A fund of science and industry is implanted in man for the best, most salutary, and most beneficent purposes. The second thing I've got here is human beings evolve, and if disciplined, can labor to accelerate the evolutionary process. Now, eventually, some of these concepts get wind up in the book, but right now, there's just the raw Lon just putting things out there to see if they stick to the wall. Human beings evolve, and if disciplined, can labor to accelerate the evolutionary process. And then number 3, human beings are relatively high on the hierarchy of spiritual beings. Number 5, when we create, we are one with the Creator. Number 6, as above, so below. And then in parentheses, I go Hermes/Hiram. As above, so below. Transformation, transmutation, raising, and that's in quotes, raising of things below us raises us in turn. I'll repeat that number 6 again. Remember, these are just notes, so there's no subjects or predicates sometimes. As above, so below. Hermes, Hiram. Transformation, transmutation. Raising of things below us raises us in turn. And then number 7, conscientious humans have the duty to redirect and control the lower forces to constructive ends. We've got a duty to get those little devils under control and working for constructive ends, just like the legend of King Solomon, gathering up and using demons, literally evil spirits, to build the Temple of Solomon. Putting them to work, giving them good jobs. Because as you were raised, they are raised. It is a good job. Okay, and this is what I said here. Okay, because I talk about the Templars a lot and give them a little history of the Templars and that. Could the Knights Templars have held a two-part secret? One historical and one spiritual? A secret that reveals what religion is not and what God and man are. Could the secret treasure of the Knights Templar, the Merengovians, the Cathars, the Rosicrucians, yes, the Masons, be that there is no secret? Because there was no golden age, historical golden age of David or Solomon. And that the purpose of Masonry's veneration of Solomon is not to advance an alternate view of history, but to present, however subtle, the archetype of the future human being. Okay, let's see if there's anything else in these notes. Yeah, the real key of Solomon, the real key to the key of Solomon is not a document or a book or an artifact, but a level of consciousness that's achieved when we realize our true spiritual status in the cosmos. A level of consciousness that transforms our self-image and behavior, giving us the magic key of Solomon, the power to master our own demons and redirect their destructive energy to build the temple of our own evolving soul. Are we educated enough? Are we mature enough? Are we brave enough? Are we smart enough? Are we wise enough to handle the truth? And there's a scattered notes for the book. The Key to Solomon's Key. Is this the lost symbol of Freemasonry? It's got a wonderful introduction by my late friend James Wasserman, and it has a wonderful afterword by a great Masonic writer, Mark Stavish. So please get it. It's by one of my a smaller publisher called the CCC, Consortium of Collective Consciousness. Okay, it's a publisher of controversial things, and it's a controversial book. Anyway, but I've been privileged to lecture and hold lectures on this book in Masonic lodges, I guess all over the world. Anyway, until tomorrow, continue to be good to yourself, be good to each other. Do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law. I'll see you in August.